So this next session is a little bit different. As I got to talking with our friend here about a topic, we started talking about how spiritualism impacts an entrepreneur and choices you make spiritually can really impact how effective you are as a leader. And for those who've never heard from our guest before, she's been on my podcast several times. Um, she's done multiple webinars on the membership portal. We had a really great roundtable discussion. Your plug came unplugged, so we can't say anything. And she's always posting neat things. In fact, she has done a social media takeover of the LFTN network to live stream from the just live socially from the event. If you have great pictures, make sure you get them to her because she can do things with that. And if you want to know how to do that, pull her aside. She'll show you how to do it with a whole bunch of free stuff. And with that, I want to hand it over to Kim.
I actually left.
I saw that.
Like 2 days ago again.
Somebody did that?
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you tell the Kim story.
No, it's just that if my name's Sue, just so you don't get confused, but if anybody doesn't know my name, automatically they're like, Kim, it's always Sue.
I'm sure it's not racially motivated at all.
No, it's not. I actually was on a talk show with a gentleman named Martin, and I was guest like so
Kim's better than Karen. I was thinking the same thing.
I know. It is. So they were trying to make a joke out of it. But there it is. Maybe that's why it's a funny thing. But anyway, my name is Sue, and as Nicole said, this was not originally what I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about social media, which is what I usually talk about, as many of you know, and I will absolutely take questions on that as well as in and about today and tomorrow. I'm not going to be here on Saturday, but feel free to put me aside. But what we are going to talk about is just how do you make yourself strong enough to run a business or to build yourself up to that point, because a lot of you guys are thinking about that, and I think that this is a good follow-up to the talk that you guys had this morning. But it does take a lot of strength, and sometimes you think I can't do this, or how do people do it? I get that question a lot, more than almost any other question. How do you do everything that you do? I now actually have 3 businesses. They're all named after myself. And the actual, Kim. The actual reason they're named after myself is when I started my first business. The main reason I started the zoldak agency was people wanted to work with me as opposed to the agency that I was working with. And so I thought long and hard about that. If I named the business something else, I would continually get this question: are we working with you, or are we working with another company that you joined? And so I kind of had to go with naming the business after myself. So that was how the Zoldak agency was born in 2016. But I do tell people that Zoldak means mercenary or assassin in Slovak, and I also tell people to never ask me that twice. So in 2019, I started 2 other supplementary companies. The Zoldak agency is an ad agency, which is public affairs advertising, which means we don't sell soap or products, we sell issues. So we help people either vote for an issue, contact with congressmen, pass ballot measures. I'll talk a little bit more about that as I go. Zoldak Research is a public opinion polling firm. Zoldak Victory is a Republican version of Zoldak agency. So how did I get started in the business? I'm going to tell you a little bit of my story here.
Yes, sweet. You're free.
I'm free. That's better because I feel like I can see I have better peripheral vision. How did I get into the business? I'm going to tell you the story for a reason. So when I was getting my master's degree, I opened up my textbooks, and over again, there was a case study called Harry and Louise. And it is a television ad series that aired in the early 1990s. It was about Hillary care. What made it, textbook, well, and this ad right here is actually in the Smithsonian American Museum. But the reason it was in my textbooks is that it is the first time that an ad was aimed toward the public about an issue that was in Congress. Before 1993, no one had ever spent money this way. Now, we kind of think of that as commonplace today. You turn on TV and you see people like, call your congressman about Medicare expansion or whatever it is. But in 1993, this ad series featuring a couple called Harry and Louise, who read through, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but at the time, Hillary Clinton actually published her bill. It was that long, 1,200 pages. You could actually go to Barnes and Noble and read it, and they would open up the book, and Louise would sigh, "There has to be a better way." And this was a famous ad commercial at the time. So I read about them, the ad series, and I said to myself, this is what I want to do. I love advertising and creative. I have that part of my mind, but I am here getting in DC, getting my master's in public policy. This was a career switch for me. Prior to that, I was a math teacher. But this is the intersection of the two things I love, policy and advertising. And it suddenly dawned on me that there was an actual career you could make out of issue advocacy advertising. And I had never heard of such a genre, such a career at all. So I looked up the person who wrote the ad series and produced the ad series, and I wrote him an email and I said, can I please be your intern? And so this was in 2004, and he said yes. So I started at his firm. His name was Ben Goddard. So I worked at Goddard Clausen, that was the name of the firm. Started as an intern, and 7 years later, I left there as a vice president. And then I went on subsequently to a couple other agencies, and then eventually just start my own firm. But as the first year I was there, the famous Washington Post writer Jeffrey Birnbaum actually came into the office. I was sitting in the cubicle across from Ben's office when Mr. Birnbaum came to interview Ben, and that was when Ben was coined the godfather of issue ethics. So my point in this part of the story is that, I was really motivated to learn from the best person I could find. There wasn't a job opening that I applied for. He actually had never had an intern, and he told me that, like usually get lots of emails. He always says no. But there was something about the email that I wrote to him that really showed him that I understood Harry and Louise and understood the idea, the concept of why that was a winning ad campaign. That ad campaign actually is credited with defeating Hillary care. And so I became kind of a de facto guard of the Harry and Louise brand. Many people came to Ben and said, can we use the characters Harry and Louise to hawk this, to hawk this issue, that issue? And oftentimes, most of the time, 99 times out of 100, we would say no, until Rahm Emanuel called from the White House, and he said, you have to use Harry and Louise to help us with Obama. So we did, because there's someone named Rahm Emanuel called us. And we put together a different coalition, and we filmed Harry and Louise Returns, and it was my very honor to be on the set when we brought Harry and Louise back together. The same actors, different house, same coffee mug, but and we brought them together again in 2009. I felt like that at that time was like, oh my gosh, my career has come full circle, right? And this is going to be a theme. Like, you think to yourself, I've done it. I've come full circle in my career, like, to get to this point. But I soon realized, like, there's more to that, right? And so I left Goddard Clausen when I realized I'd learned everything I could learn from Ben and his partner Jerry. And I went on, like I said, to a couple other firms. And we fast forward in time a little bit. I went on to found my own firm in 2016. One of the first campaigns I ran as my own firm was, for those of you that live here in Tennessee, was to remove the Tennessee hall tax. The hall tax was the only remaining part of the state income tax here in Tennessee. It was only the second time in history that a state income tax has been repealed. And so this is a famous campaign now. Now you are truly income tax free here. But what really made it kind of come full circle for me there again was in 2001, a gentleman named Victor Mutombo reached out and said, I'm writing my PhD dissertation on the Hello tax campaign. And I thought then, okay, now my career has come full circle, because when I found Ben, it was because I read about him when I was getting a master's degree. And now here's someone who's going to write their PhD on a campaign that I ran that same year. Also, here's a textbook that somebody wrote on modern political campaigns that I teach with at George Washington. He kept saying to me, open to page 1 of my book. I'm like, I will. I'm like, well, I'm going to read this manuscript, this and that. What he really meant was that he opened his textbook with a quote from me. I know you can see this, this is me right here. So I'm now in a textbook, and I thought, then, this is this is it. I am in a textbook about modern political campaigns. My life has come full circle. So, I'm very, proud of where I've come. This is a letter that I framed that I got in my first year when I was interning from Ben that I kept just because I just never thought I'd get a Christmas letter from Ben being an intern. That was my bookshelf then. This is my bookshelf now. These are some of the words that we've won as a company. And so, like I said, you just feel this is where you are. But at the same time, so people ask, like, doesn't that just feel like so much pressure, right? And how do you get there? And that's why we're here to talk about how do you withstand the pressure of, I've just really kind of given you the highlights, like the fun parts of my story. But 2 questions I always get is, wow, how do you get a story like that? And 2, how do you do it all? And my answer to that is everybody has a story like that, but you have to open your eyes to be able to see it and to be able to tell it. And the key to that is spiritualism, is to be able to see something that's not there. Every single one of you has a story that is amazing, but it's all in how you see it, and you open up what I call kind of like a third eye to be able to see that. And I'm going to use these 2 pieces of art to kind of give you that feeling. I know this is going to sound like I'm departing from the topic, but I'm just going to show you these 2 pieces of art. How many of you feel like these 2 pieces of art have anything in common? A little bit, right? A little bit. Some, right? I took an art history class in college just to kind of get away from my major a little bit. I could say it was wasting money, but actually it was one of my favorite classes in college. And it really opened my eyes. It's how you see things, right? So we're going to come back to that, and we're going to talk about why spiritual wellness matters when you are going to take on being an entrepreneur. So a lot of people will say it's about strengthening what's in your head, right? It's about having that strong mentality. Some people will say it's about what's in your heart, having real passion for what you do. I think both of those things are really important. But what I really, really want you guys to think about as spirituality, to me, is about strengthening your spine, okay? Because when you're the entrepreneur, it's the spine that holds everything up. And so what do I mean by that? If you don't strengthen and protect your spine, you're not going to be able to withstand the pressure. I'm going to tell you that right now. If you want to run your own business, you want to be responsible for your own life, that sounds amazing, and it is amazing, but you have to make sure, and you have to make choices so that you protect yourself above all else. Why? Because you are it. You are now responsible for everything. There's no longer anything that is anyone else's fault, right? So what happens when you're the entrepreneur? I threw in, instead of using stock photos, I threw on the side some of you that Nicole knows what these pictures are of. some of the questions get asked are how do you, I travel a lot for work, I do a lot of client work. Do you ever feel guilty as a single mom who's been away from your daughter? So ever since childhood, I've always taken one of her stuffed animals on with me on trips, and the stuffed animals text her and talk to her from all the little travels, and I've had conversations, and the bunnies have always had adventures. So everywhere I go, and I don't care, people have seen me at airports, at conferences, posing bunnies. And some people ask me, what am I doing? And I'll tell them, I go, this is my daughter, and the bunny has a specific journey that they go through on my trip. So I have 1,000 photos of 1,000 different bunnies that have always traveled with me. And that's how I stay connected to my daughter. So I just, as a side point, I'm using this photos to show you can do it all. Okay, for the women out there, there is no such thing as not having it all. What happens when you're an entrepreneur? Everyone depends on you. Every decision is yours to make. Everything is your fault, and every win is your win. Okay, we really want you to think about that. Everything is you, and that's why that find is so important. So the foundation of spirituality is your belief in yourself, in what you're doing, and why you are doing it. If you don't know those three things every single day when you get up, guess what? You're not going to want to get up. And if you can't believe in yourself, what you're doing, why you're doing it, you should not run your own business, because the other choice is much easier, to work for someone else. And then all of that pressure is not yours. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Okay. But you want to think about that choice, because if you want to relieve the pressure, then go to a job where it's not your fault, where every fault isn't your own, right? But if you want to run your own business and have the satisfaction of being able to tell the story like I was able to tell, you want to have your belief in that. So I want to have a little parentheses here. That is a caveat to not say, that doesn't mean blind belief. So when I say believe in yourself and really believe in what you're doing, I don't mean like believe, like to excuse not doing basic business things, like not believing market research or not believing in having a business plan or copyright law or whatever. You still do the actual legal things. If the market research tells you not to do something, you need to believe in that as opposed to believing in yourself, right? Those are two different things. You can't will yourself into a business that doesn't work. But you really need to love what you're doing, right? So you better believe that what you're doing is 1,000 times better than any possible other alternative, whether that's working for someone else, whether that's being on welfare, whether that's whatever it is, right? You better believe it. You better believe it by multiple times. Okay. So how do you do that? So this is kind of a worksheet that I'll leave with you that you can take away. I put in the red kind of my examples of these things, but here are kind of 8 things that I feel like if you can continually find these ways to bring the spirituality to yourself, then you can cleanse your mind and be able to focus really hard. Because what it means to be an entrepreneur is every single day, and there's no such thing like, if you ask me what day of the week it is today, I cannot tell you. And Nicole absolutely knows it. My staff has to tell me today's Wednesday, today's whatever it is, every single day they have to text me. They'll say, well, it's tomorrow. It's tomorrow. I'm like, well, what day is tomorrow? Because I don't know. Do you want to know why? Because it doesn't make a difference. Every day is a day that I run a business. There's no Saturday, there's no Sunday. Monday is no different than any other day. But how do you find spiritual balance? I am able to keep going and withstand that pressure because I work very fast, because I am able to use these things to free myself of that pressure when I need to, right? So that I can very quickly go back to making the decisions that I need to make. You can wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and ask me a question, and I will have an answer. And I'm pretty sure it's actually right. So what that means, so like having a touchstone, something that you love, some place that you love, something that you go to. It could be a piece of jewelry that you wear on your body all the time, something that you do with intention, a place in your house, a view, a photo. To me, it's like the ocean. I feel like if I don't see the ocean at least once a year, I don't have that like journey or that place. I something starts to feel off, right? Something, a symbol that really inspires me. To me, it's my company logo. I love my company logo. Y'all got a lot of bottles of my company logo. Company logos on everything. I have a neon sign in my home, my company logo. My office wall has a company logo carved out of wood. Every coffee mug we drink out of my house is a Zoldak agency mug. But to me, it's like when I look at it, I remember why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? It's that symbol. I know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and it makes me want to do more. A mood changer. You're in a bad mood, right? Or if there's you're something you need to shift, you were thinking about this, or you have thinking about your family, or something like that has happened. Is there something? Find something and know what that thing is, so that you can switch modes. To me, that's music, right? I really kind of discovered that watching the 1990s series Ally McBeal. I don't know if anybody remembers that show, but that character and the way that show was written, the main character was, she would have these little imaginations in her mind, and they were always kind of, paired to like a song. It was like really her song. And even now when I interview people, I say, what is your theme song? Like I need to know like what song gets you motivated in the morning. To me, my theme song, if you want to know, is Tupac. Oh God, should get you now. But you have to have that thing that like grounds you, changes your mood, and like gets you ready to go. Something that you feel like can clean your environment. So kind of like that spring cleaning feeling, that house cleansing. To me, that's like eating vegan. I actually try to eat vegan like 2 meals out of the day. But if I feel like I'm really down or that things are going wrong, or I've been eating a lot of bad food or something, I definitely feel that like trend. And so to me, that may not, it may be the exact opposite for you. And I know a lot of you are keto. It may be going the other way, right? It doesn't, these things, it doesn't in red, these just apply to me, right? But I'm just giving you a hard example so that you can see what something like this is, in a tactical way. This one is so important. Having guidance or being a part of some kind of incubator, which I think this is a great example of that. So there are two different things. Guidance is like you with a one-on-one. An incubator is being a part of a group where you get group feedback. I think both of those situations are important, but you have to seek out those relationships. Those things don't walk over to you and tap you on the shoulder. Okay, that is not how it happens. You have to seek a guide, a spiritual guide, a religious guide, an executive coach. So for me, I have a Native American spiritual coach named Dr. Tim in Arizona. I have a therapist. I've had several executive coaches. But you need to find something that works for you, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. Some kind of regular maintenance thing, exercise, travel, a healthy way to get high. And so that's like something like gives you endorphins for me, shopping. But something that like really like picks you up, and then downtime, right? Something that it's sometimes, usually the downtime is difficult for an entrepreneur or a go-getter. This is something like it's painful to you in some ways, right? So for me, it's digital detox, like where I literally log out of every app on my phone. Everything. So I just use my phone in case my daughter needs me for an emergency, but I put away all the stuff. Right? I want to talk about the coach and mentor really quickly, right? A coach and mentor is not someone who's supposed to make you feel good about yourself. A lot of people feel like this isn't working. This guy's not making me feel good. Right? Or I don't feel good about myself. That's not the job of therapy or a coach or a mentor. Those are all very different things. Okay? But that's not what a good executive coach or mentor does. It's not their job to make you feel good about yourself. It's also not their job to make you feel bad about yourself. But the way you know it's working is that you feel better about what you're doing, right? You know you're in the right place. And that's how you know that it's working. The one thing that I've said, having many different mentors and many executive coaches, some of them forced upon me, like in my role, some people force you into executive coaching, kicking and screaming. That's usually how it happens. You need to know when you outgrow somebody as a mentor. That's something that and don't be afraid to break up with that person, right? Just because somebody's been your mentor for a while doesn't mean that they're your mentor for life. Okay, don't feel bad. Just say, I think that this is, we've learned as much as we can from each other. This has been a great relationship, and it's the end of the road. Always, and this is obviously true of therapy, be willing to let them see the real you. They can't help you if you lie to them or pretend to be somebody else, right? You have to just flat out, if you're secretly really selfish or whatever it is, it's not secretly selfish, you're just selfish. That's totally fine, right? They need to work with that with you so that they can help you. Right? And the last thing I think is really important. The work that you do with a guide, a mentor, a coach is private. If you are sharing what you're doing in those sessions, you are actually doing that for approval from somebody else and not for yourself. You're seeking outside commentary on your personal growth. You're not growing then. Because if you're doing that, you will never grow past the maturity of your circle. And isn't the point of getting executive coaching or mentorship or growth is to become better than everyone around you. And if you seek the approval of the people around you, that's where you'll be. Okay, that is where you'll be forever. Either at the level of your staff, your family, your spouse. And I don't say that in a negative way, but if the goal is for you to excel beyond that, if you go and tell everyone what you do in your coaching or mentoring, you're flattening yourself right to that place. And that's as far as you'll go. I promise you that. Okay? If you want to surpass the people around you, you don't tell them what you're doing. You get that. Okay? All right. So never waste. When you are in the spiritual highest place that you can be, right? You've cleansed, you know how to change your mood, you have a touchstone, you know how to get downtime, you know how to do all of these things. That's when you operate at your highest level of all the time. Never ever waste time, opportunity. Always know when you need a break. That's when you know, right? So you don't ever get worn down to the point of having a breakdown because you've done the spiritual maintenance and you have that worksheet and you know when to do those things to keep you on track. And when you do those things, you're not on this roller coaster, right? Of I'm tired, I'm too tired, I'm worn out. You can't do that if you want to win at business. You're up here all the time, right? So it's never okay to waste time or opportunity. The one thing that people worry about the most, wasting money, that's actually the one thing that's okay to waste. You want to know why? One, you can make it back. You can't make back time and opportunity. And two, when you waste money, you should learn something from it. Actually, sometimes wasting money teaches you something. Okay? So use money to gain insight and don't sit there and say, well, I don't want to waste money to find out if advertising works, or I don't want to waste money to find out if going to this conference works, or I don't want to, maybe going to that conference was a waste of money. It's fine, let it go. But you learned that it was a waste of money, right? You'll make that money back. But if you waste an opportunity, you never get it back. And a lot of people focus so much on wasting money that they miss out on, one, the time they spend worrying about it, and two, the opportunity, right? So when you get to this high operating level, you can make decisions and answer any question from your organization about your business, about your organization. You should be able to make every decision with speed, with confidence, with expertise, and with rationale. So when someone from my team asks me, should we do this? It only takes me about 6 seconds to respond, yes, because that's why. Do it now, here, in this way, and this is why I think so. I don't need to think more than a minute or two about any response I give anyone. And then I don't think about it again. Right? So when you look around you and you can operate at a high level, that's when you see your story. That's when you see your true purpose. Right? That's when you see your path. That's where you see where you can be brave. And it's that third eye that guides you into your success. I'm going to go back to this picture at the end here. And, what does that feel like? What does that feel like to see something that you've never seen? So I compare these two pictures for you. This is a, everyone recognizes this as the Madonna and Child from the 1600s. A lot of you know that's a Mondrian. It's a famous modern art Deco piece, 1921. But if you look at the pieces, and I explained to you, a lot of people hate modern art because they say it has no composition or has no purpose or has no, like, the person who put that together had no artistic sense. And what are they doing? Like, I could have done that. Like, there's no, like, what's the point of it, right? But if you really look at the Madonna and Child, here, the use of light, the whiteness to show the baby Jesus here in the light, in the white balance of the mother, and you see the focus in a small block of her red dress. And then you notice that just a few pieces of blue that highlight around the edges, and then the dark black to balance it out, and then a little bit of light yellow. You will see that in modern art, and same as art was in the 1600s, all paintings are about balance and structure. And like this visualization, it's not because I'm trying to give you an art history lesson, hopefully maybe it's going to be art history, but it's to show you this is the difference. When you're able to see everything around you like this, that's the difference between being able to see everything with that sharpness that comes with spirituality. Okay? So Ben actually passed away in 2018, and I'm missing quite a bit. And that made me think, my circle's not finished, right? I'm so far away from closing that circle. And what I'm waiting for now to kind of finish that circle is I'm waiting for my Sue. So I'm waiting for someone to write me a letter to want to be my intern because they read about me in their book, getting their master's degree, or they read about me in a PhD dissertation. And I'm there, I'm getting there. I think I'm almost there, but I don't feel like I'm really finished. So I'll keep on going. That's my bunny. So I thank you. You can scan this as a QR code that puts my contact information in your phone if you want to have that. You can call or text, email me at any time for questions, but I'm here for questions now.
Perfect. Yep. Okay, question.
You see, you talked about, especially the first time you reached out to your mentor, Ben, is that right?
Yes.
For reaching out to potential mentors and that sort of thing?
Yes. That is a great question. My first thing is always, the worst thing someone can say to you is no. And what's so bad about that, right? And so I actually have never applied for a job in my entire life, like via a job applicant. Every single job I've had along my career is me just telling somebody, and this is why. And the worst that somebody could say is no. And have I been fired or let go from jobs? Yes, right. So that's not like, I'm not trying to just paint rosy pictures here. I've been let go many times, downsized, and let go with a group of 20 people. All the things that happen to normal people have happened, to anybody have happened to me. But when I wrote Ben that email, I think it was just that it came from my heart, right? I said, I've read about these commercials. I've never realized this was a career to marry these two things, and I want to learn. And I think the thing is, you make every opportunity what you take out of it. I wasn't I was old to be an intern. I was 27 because again, this was my second career. Right? I'd already been a teacher for 6 years. I'd already, I was getting my master's degree. I wasn't a typical intern, right? But I was willing to be an intern and get paid minimum wage, right? Or not get paid at all. I didn't even care. But the point was I wanted to learn from the best. And that is, part of my legacy now. But the thing is, that's all that mattered to me, right? And the funny story is, which I didn't tell as part of that. So as an intern, as a 27-year-old intern, I sat in a cubicle outside of his office. I answered the phone. I ordered Staples supplies. I put I put paper clips into the whatever. I did that as a 27-year-old. But I was allowed to go to meetings. The phone would ring a lot. Ben's wife would call quite a bit. He had a wife that called a lot. Her name was Louise. And, hi, Louise. Hi, Ben. 3 months in to my job, Louise walks in, Ben's wife. And that's when I realized that Ben's wife was Louise from the television. And I said, and everyone in the office said, oh, we thought everyone knew that. I'm like, no, nobody knows that. Because I have researched and done all this to get here, and there is not a single article, there's not a single piece, nobody knows that. And so it was just, I guess if you could have seen my face at the time, I was like, you guys should have seen that. And I was very upset. So Ben actually met Louise on the set, and they had this running joke where it was down to her and a redhead. And Ben ended up deciding that a redhead is not as relatable as an everyday, like suburban mom. Is a little bit more, exotic. She was a little bit more of an exotic looking woman, and Louise is a little bit more of an everyday woman. And every once in a while, you just hear, well, you should have hired the redhead then. They loved each other very much. It was obviously a joke, but imagine my shock. But to get back to your question, explain why what you want to get out of that mentorship relationship. Right? Explain what it is you're seeking from that person, and be really honest about it.
Any other questions?
Also, I know a lot of you got ahead and just asked about social media. So it's fine if you
Social media questions are okay
talk
too.
about on the podcast. yes, I'm happy to do that.
I got one, so it's a little stepson is 13. Do you have any advice on ways to foster more of an entrepreneurial spirit? So I have a couple of nephews, they graduated college. I was in school for my one nephew is devastating to me because he stayed with us for a year. And I got him an internship. I work at NASA. And I said, hey, you got a big opportunity. Doesn't matter if you barely graduated college. Here's your opportunity. And NASA, my company, really bent over backwards. But he would literally put in his time. He would come home and go right into his room on his phone. And I guess, like you said, all mistakes. At least we can go to our son now. It's like, you want to be like that? But do you have any advice or ways we can help foster this?
Yes, yes. I totally understand what you're saying. I think that just being a good role model, just modeling the person that you want to be, the ambition, but yet whatever it is, the values that you want. I mean, that's why it's so important for me, like, when I travel, that I make sure that I know that my daughter knows, probably to her, she groans a lot, probably do a little too much, that I'm thinking about her, that, that although I'm very ambitious and focused on my business, that, it's not the end all be all. And do I look back and do I wish that I had more time for her? Yes. But I think at the end of the day, though, what I tell myself is what I've modeled for her is someone that works hard, that earns us a living by putting in and getting out, what I put in, right? As opposed to just letting things happen to me or blaming life, and that I take responsibility for the results as opposed to things being given to us. And also that we enables us to take care of others, such as, if our friends need something or they are having a hard time, they can come say, just to say, like, we're privileged in that sense that we can help other people. And I think, telling her, do you want to be in that position, for yourself in the future, to be in that position where you're in control of your future, and then also to the point where you could be the person who helps somebody, as opposed to the other end of that spectrum, someone who's dependent, someone who doesn't have any control over their lives, someone who has to have choices made for them. And I just, hopefully she makes the right decision, seeing that, like, we have choices because of the way we live our lives, of the hard work that we do when we take responsibility, right? My daughter just actually had her first summer job interview. She's 15. And, we talk about the importance of that and how, you get your first job. It's not something where if you don't feel like it, you can't show up for a day. And we talk about all that. And I think it's just, sometimes you have to let them decide, what side do you want to be on, right? But I think making those consequences vividly clear, is really important, because I think sometimes we don't make those consequences clear to kids. Like, we give them a life where, like, they don't realize that because of X, then Y.
Right.
And so, because of X, we can go to Disney World. But if it weren't for X, we're not, some people don't go to Disney World.
I really think that was something my mother did. My parents were immigrants from Germany. They grew up during and after World War II. They literally grew up during the war. I couldn't even imagine. One thing my parents did for me is I turned 14, mom's birthday, I was full English, and she took me to get working papers, and she said, now go get a job. And I was like, I don't know how to get a job. So I ended up trying to get a job at a grocery store, but I think that's one of the most important things. Is pushing it, because once I earn my own money, it really becomes that's part of the freedom, right? But that's what we're pushing my nephew. But that's also what I told my sister to do for my nephew. She never did. And this was the first job he's had. She dragged him through college, which was idiotic. But she never wanted to hear me when I said, you should make him go out and get a job. Now, he's happy looking at his phone. They bought him a brand new car. And, he lost his internship, and now he's back home. Anyway.
Well, so, I mean, this is just one person's opinion. I mean, a person's lifestyle has to match, the consequences have to match.
Right.
So, I mean, even if I give my daughter something nice, I explain to her what it took to give her that thing. And I make it very clear, not to the point of making her feel guilty for it, but to make her understand how that end result happens, right? Like, we can do these things, and you can have this iPhone because if these things don't happen, we don't have an iPhone.
How do your Zoldak holiday gifts get shipped? Does she help you do that?
So every year, during December, we send a custom care package to every client, or every person that's a major point of contact with our client. That list has grown from 12 to 30 to 40 to 70 to 100, and it's a very carefully curated little box with multiple things in it. And my daughter is a little bit of a perfectionist, but she's the holiday, we call her the Zoldak holiday elf. And she packages, folds the boxes, they're come flat shipped, she has to fold the cardboard boxes, she stuffs all the crinkle paper, she lays everything, there's multiple pieces, a letter from me, a card, all 4 or 5 pieces. They get labeled, And so it takes a couple days. Some people are, they get the card and I get emails back. So thank you so much for, the holiday gift. And then there's some people that have gotten really smart and they're like, thank you, insert my daughter's name, holiday voucher. And I forward those messages to her. I'm like, people know that they're not me. When she complains, though, I do say to her, I think this is probably the point you're trying to make is what you're looking at is what pays for the house that we're living in and every single thing you own. So zip it. So you should be grateful because she's like, how many boxes are there? I'm like, if this number of boxes shrink, you should be sad, very sad. So get to work. So that's, yeah. Well, I hope. Oh, no, go ahead.
What's the symbology of? I mean, I know there's zoldak, but
so it's a Z and an A. So this is an A for Zoldak agency. So then for Zoldak research, there's one with an R, and then for Zoldak victory, there's a V, and it's like a check mark for voting. So it's like a very subtle A at the bottom.
All right. Well, thank you, Sue. We will reconvene in 30 minutes. So talk amongst yourselves here. I'm next. So if you don't want to see me